a nationwide pattern.
How did it happen all these times?
Women.
I'm handcuffed, I'm in the bathroom.
Vulnerable.
So what is out of your pants?
An industry in the shadows.
There's no oversight of these companies.
Training and safety ignored.
None of it happened.
Promises broken.
It literally destroyed me.
KARE 11 investigates. Nowhere to turn. Thanks for joining us. I'm AJ Legault. This investigation exposes the government turning a blind eye to rape and abuse as humans are hauled around the country in chains by private companies operating with virtually zero oversight. A warning for viewers, this report discusses sexual violence, and a note, KARE 11 does not identify sexual assault survivors without their permission. No matter the wrong turns taken, some lines should never be crossed.
I'm handcuffed. I'm in a bathroom stall.
Danielle Civils is telling her survivor story publicly for the first time. It begins in 2015. She ran a stop sign in St. Paul, slamming into another driver. Danielle walked away from the scene. She was convicted of hit and run. Because of that history, she never thought she'd be believed if she spoke up, accusing a man with a badge of rape.
And I'm like, that's exactly what I was afraid of. That's exactly why he didn't say anything.
In 2019, Danielle was booked into jail here in Dallas, Texas for a probation violation. She was loaded into a white passenger van for the cross-country extradition back to Ramsey County Jail in Minnesota. One of the guards, Marquette Johnson.
He was a predator, and I was the prey.
She says the first time was in Oklahoma at a highway rest stop bathroom. Johnson had a gun, Danielle, no choice.
I felt like a scared little girl, and I felt like there was nobody that could help me.
She ended up at Shakopee Prison, and Marquette Johnson started contacting her.
He actually emailed me, he sent me photos, he tried to make it seem like it was consensual, he tried to make it seem like he was confused, like that's what I wanted.
Danielle didn't know. The guard wrote notes, like this one given to a Colorado woman, to a lot of female inmates he transported. Women who all have similar stories of rape and abuse. Despite the gun and badge, Marquette Johnson is not law enforcement. He worked for a private for-profit company called Inmate Services Corps, or ISC, headquartered in West Memphis, Arkansas, in this unmarked office space. It's owned by Randy Cagle Jr., who had a long-standing contract with Ramsey County to haul inmates to the jail from around the country for the freight-like rate of $1 per mile. Ramsey's contract with ISC mandates when transporting females, there must be a female guard. But our investigation finds the county did not enforce it.
So they didn't have any female guard along on this trip?
No. No, it was 2 men.
They are feeding these women exactly into that situation where it's a lamb to slaughter.
Attorney Paul Applebaum represents Danielle in a federal lawsuit, which in part accuses Ramsey County of deliberate indifference to their duty to screen private vendors.
There really is no oversight.
Should there be?
Well, absolutely.
This is probably just scratching the surface. There's probably many other victims out there.
Our investigation found more, many more women all across the country who say they too suffered sexual assault when transported in an ISC van.
They were sodomized. They were raped at gunpoint. They were deprived of basic human rights.
Megan Curtis is another of Danielle's attorneys suing ISC and Ramsey County. In court filings, the county denied responsibility.
They have a responsibility, not only legally, morally, to transport these women safely.
Our investigation finds there's evidence that ISC knew that Johnson was accused of acting inappropriately with women in his care, but left him on the job. In November of 2019, a woman we're only identifying by her initials, TP, was transported from New Mexico to the Delta County, Colorado jail. She told staff her ISC guard, Johnson, raped her, that he held the barrel of his handgun to her cheek, warned her to cooperate, otherwise it was going to get ugly, and afterwards gave her this note, inviting her to call him.
It's astounding that, despite her having reported that rape, the company continued to allow him to transport women.
Attorney Laura Schauer Ives represents TP, who had a rape kit done. The DNA left no doubt. The FBI got involved. According to a federal criminal case filed in early 2023 in New Mexico, Inmate Services Corps guard Marquette Johnson is suspected of sexually assaulting at least 15 women. In December, as part of a plea deal that calls for 30 years in prison, he pleaded guilty to raping TP and admitted there were others.
6 of the women that the FBI identified were raped after my client reported her rape.
How did it happen a second time? How did it happen a third time? How did it happen all these times?
Still ahead, multiple warnings ignored.
When you were warned that Marquette Johnson was misbehaving with women, what did you do?
Nowhere to Turn continues after the break. Welcome back to Nowhere to Turn. 3 months before Danielle.
You can't get that back. You can't forget.
Before so many others, including TP, there was another clear warning that Marquette Johnson was a risk. In March of 2019, a pregnant woman transported from Indiana to the Hart County Jail in Munfordville, Kentucky, filed this written complaint with the jail. It claims Johnson pawed at her, rubbing her belly, saying he'd never been with a pregnant girl. Records show when the FBI served a search warrant here at ISC headquarters, they found the complaint. We wanted to know why company owner Randy Cagle allowed Johnson to keep on transporting women. He never responded to our attempts to contact him, so we knocked on the door of his Tennessee home. We were greeted by a Doberman.
I'll leave my card here at the door.
A few minutes later, the phone rang.
I need to notify you I'm recording this phone call.
Write this down, record it, whatever the you need to do.
Cagle offered up a profanity-laden tirade and threats.
When you were warned that Marquette Johnson was misbehaving with women, what did you do?
You come and warn me. How about that?
But no answers.
When you were warned that he was misbehaving with women in your case, what did you do?
Our investigation finds at least 11 women report being sexually assaulted by Johnson after that first complaint was made, Danielle included.
Inmate lives don't matter. We just don't matter. We're just a number.
Our investigation found the numbers adding up. Marquette Johnson, not the only ISC guard accused of treating rape as a perk of the job.
Some allegations that were made while transporting inmates.
It's October 2nd, 2018, at the Coles County Jail in Charleston, Illinois. ISC extradition agent Marius Nesby paces the interrogation room. He's in trouble and knows it.
There's an allegation that there was a sexual assault. Okay.
This is an audio recording from earlier in the day when detectives from the Illinois State Police questioned him.
Did you rape that girl?
No, I did not.
What occurred in that bathroom, Marius?
Nothing.
To the prisoners in his van, Agent Nesby goes by a nickname.
Bossman.
Bossman.
They called the other one Bossman.
Eventually,
you're not telling the truth.
Bossman's story changes.
So was it out of your pants?
Yeah.
Okay.
He admits there was sexual contact, but claims it was consensual.
What happened?
Is it even legally possible for an incarcerated individual to consent to sex with a guard?
Never.
Julia Bade is with Just Detention International, a nonprofit dedicated to ending sexual abuse in confinement. Before that, she was deputy chief in the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division and helped draft the Prison Rape Elimination Act standards.
Due to the power dynamics that the staff hold over every incarcerated person, it renders consent absolutely impossible to give.
Have you ever done this before?
I'm very accused. I never did it.
Just 7 months before his arrest in Illinois, another woman being extradited from Arizona to Wisconsin accused Nesby, aka Bossman, of bringing her here to Inmate Service Corps' headquarters in West Memphis, Arkansas, and sexually assaulting her in the bathroom.
That victim's allegations are spelled out in federal court records from a lawsuit she brought against Nesby and Inmate Services Corps. Because Nesby and his employer stopped responding to the court, the woman won a $152,000 default judgment. However, she's been unable to collect a dime. There was also a criminal investigation started in that case.
The FBI came to my apartment. All four FBI there.
What happened with that FBI investigation is not clear. Nesby was never charged, and the FBI won't comment.
But another sex assault investigation against one of Nesby's bosses here at Inmate Services Corps provides insight into just how difficult it can be for these inmate victims to get justice.
Inmate Services Corps Captain Chris Weiss was accused in a 2017 lawsuit of violently raping an inmate in a rest stop bathroom. Court records show the woman also claimed Weiss forced her to perform other sex acts and threatened if she reported it, he would see that there were additional charges against her. Another guard testified under oath that she witnessed sexual contact between Weiss and the woman, and also with another female inmate named Ashley.
Well, he stuck his hand in my pants while the van was driving, yes.
Ashley says she was terrified because the guard had complete control over her.
It's like you don't want to make him mad, but then I didn't want that to happen either.
Despite that evidence from 2 victims and a guard, the DOJ brought no criminal charges. Why not? An FBI agent testified in this sworn deposition that his case was closed because of jurisdiction issues. The jurisdictional loophole? They didn't know what state the alleged bathroom sex assault happened in, so U.S. attorneys in multiple states declined prosecution.
Which really makes no sense. That's baffling. That should not happen at all. That's something that the feds absolutely should have jurisdiction over, and it should not be an excuse to be able to sexually abuse someone simply because they don't know where the heck they are when it happened.
Weiss didn't even lose his job. He never responded to our multiple attempts to contact him, which included knocking on the door of his Tennessee home and leaving a business card. While admitting no wrongdoing, Inmate Services Corps settled civil lawsuits brought by the 2 women accusing Weiss of sexual assault. While Cagle, the company owner, clearly didn't want to talk to us.
What did you do?
In a deposition, he said, "It's real easy for a female to say something happened at any point in time. It's very easy for females." When asked why, he responded, "Because they're female." He also claimed in court filings all his employees are trained on a zero-tolerance policy for sexual assault.
Was there any training at the company in regards to, hey, don't have sex with the inmates you're transporting?
No.
Leila Brown is a former Inmate Services Corps guard, partnered with Marius Nesby, the boss man. She says on those cross-country trips, she never witnessed anything sexual, but he liked to brag.
He told me that he and a prior partner, male, would indulge in sexual favors from the inmates.
As part of a plea deal, Marius Nesby pled guilty to aggravated battery in the Illinois case and was sentenced to 2 years probation.
There's got to be a difference between people on that bus and the people that drive it.
Coming up, our investigation finds a flawed law, failed oversight, and the government's blind eye fueling rape and abuse.
There's no oversight of these companies.
That's still ahead on Nowhere to Turn.
This is a free call from an inmate at the Minnesota Department of Correction.
In some places, it's hard to have a voice.
Hello?
Hi, Jennifer.
This is, hi.
But that doesn't mean people like Jennifer Seelig don't have a story.
I just want my story to be heard.
This is Jennifer back in 2020, led into the Ramsey County Detention Center by a rapist with a badge.
It instills a lot of fear. Like, who's going to believe me over that person?
Jennifer was arrested in Olympia, Washington on a DWI warrant out of Ramsey County. To pick her up, Ramsey sent their private, for-profit prisoner transport company, Inmate Services Corps, or ISC. Roderick Hankins is one of the ISC guards who picked Jennifer up, loaded her, shackled, into a passenger van filled with other detainees, and set off crisscrossing the country. Late one night, they pulled in to a Missouri rest stop.
I'm gonna cry, but like when he forced me in the bathroom and did some stuff, he actually raped me, like full on raped me in the bathroom stall.
When Hankins dropped her off at the Ramsey County Jail, he whispered in her ear to stay quiet.
He even said, like, I'll take care of you. Like, don't talk about it. Don't say anything.
Jennifer said something.
Did you try to kiss her?
Hell no.
Okay.
Hankins, when confronted by a Ramsey detective, denied everything.
I'm happily married.
A rape kit was done. The DNA conclusive. Hankins convicted, sentenced in July 2023 to federal prison for 9 years. Carol Levin's investigation finds he's one of 3 ISC guards in the last 5 years guilty of sexually assaulting women in their custody. The company, owned by Randy Cagle Jr., also settled lawsuits involving allegations of sexual assaults by 2 other guards.
They have complete power and control over our entire lives. They're in their hands.
For a private company to be given total power and control over someone's life, you'd think there would need to be strict government oversight. But our investigation finds there's virtually no oversight.
Congress in 2000 passed the only law that provides any standards for the private prisoner transport industry. The Interstate Transportation of Dangerous Criminals Act requires, among other things, background checks that include fingerprinting, a minimum of 100 hours of training, female guards for female prisoners, specialized training in the area of sexual harassment.
And you're saying none of that happened?
None of it happened.
Christina Hall is a former guard for ISC. She tells us there was no background check and almost no training before hauling humans around the country in chains.
And they just sent me to a place in Memphis to get my picture taken to make a badge. And I never had fingerprinting done.
When you started, what sort of training did you get?
About 30 minutes telling us how to shackle an inmate and how to spray them in the back of the van.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Leela Brown, another former ISC guard, told us the same story.
You get hired at Inmate Services. How much training do you get?
Probably about 35 minutes, 45 tops.
We asked the United States Department of Justice just how many times they've taken action against a prisoner transport company for violating the federal training and safety standards. They couldn't point us to a single case.
Nobody is enforcing the standards that are out there. Nobody is looking at the regulations that are out there. There's no oversight of these companies.
Julia Bade is a former deputy chief in the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division.
And when no one's looking, staff feel like they can act with impunity to commit crimes against the people they're transporting. Nobody's looking, and we need to.
The federal law also has a major loophole. It specifically says the standards only apply to companies transporting violent prisoners. There are no federal protections for people like Jennifer, extradited for DWI. So even though her rapist was convicted, the company that employed him was not held responsible for ignoring safety standards, like having a female guard.
Was there a female guard at any point?
No, not once. 2 male guards the entire time.
The federal standards are very weak, and they have a lot of gaps in them, and they don't cover a large percentage of prisoner transports in the United States.
Rick Hodsden, a former Washington County prosecutor, now serves as chair of the Minnesota board that licenses private security, including prisoner transport companies. He tells us those federal gaps make Minnesota's enhanced licensing requirements of background checks and training for private guards all the more critical. But Ramsey's contractor, Inmate Services Corps, was unlicensed, meaning they were operating in Minnesota illegally.
We found no record of them being licensed now or previously.
Ramsey stopped using ISC in 2020 after Jennifer's rape. Most recently, both they and Hennepin County had contracts with another company called U.S. Corrections, LLC. But our investigation reveals they're also not licensed to operate in Minnesota.
Practicing without a license is a gross misdemeanor, actually.
From D.C. to Minnesota, blind eyes turned to people who often have no voice.
What does something like this do to your soul?
It destroys it. It literally destroyed me. It was so terrifying.
As a result of our questions, both Ramsey and Hennepin counties suspended their contracts with U.S. Corrections and are now using their own deputies to transport inmates. U.S. Corrections did not respond to our questions about being unlicensed.
Still ahead, a promise made in our nation's capital broken.
I'm not aware of any report or any investigation that was conducted.
Nowhere to Turn continues after the break. In federal court records, she's listed by her initials, DD.
I've never said anything to anyone.
Those records spell out what Dabrielle Dixon has never spoken about publicly until now.
The stress from it, the traumatizing of it.
A violent sexual assault in a rest stop bathroom.
The hurt from it is just building up where you don't have nobody to talk to.
Her accused rapist, Marquette Johnson, a guard for Inmate Services Corporation. CARES investigation has to date tied just that one company and its guards to 21 sex assault allegations, where there's already been a lawsuit, criminal charges, or conviction. There's no shortage of examples involving other prisoner transport companies and rapist guards.
It's horrifying but not surprising, and it shows a real need for additional investigation and action to protect people who are being transported between jails and prisons.
Rita Lomeo is a former trial attorney for the United States Department of Justice. She's now with the Prison Law Office and says the current oversight and regulation of the private prisoner transport industry has long been known to be inadequate. It routinely fails to protect people like Jennifer Seelig.
It just destroyed me. It ripped me apart.
People like Danielle Civils.
Just because we're inmates doesn't mean we're not people.
People like Dabrielle, extradited in 2019 from Chicago to Des Moines for writing bad checks.
I didn't fight back because, like I said, I'm handcuffed, I'm in the bathroom, I'm far from home, so I just did it.
The United States Department of Justice has and is prosecuting those women's accused rapists. However, our investigation finds it's the DOJ's own broken promise and Congress's distraction that's allowed dozens of sexual assaults and countless other abuses to continue unchecked.
These private transport companies operate with virtually no oversight.
It's June of 2016 in the nation's capital. Lawmakers seem outraged.
But we're not talking about pallets of laundry detergent. We're talking about human beings. We're talking about American citizens.
They're responding to a blistering piece of investigative journalism by the Marshall Project, which laid bare the private prisoner transport industry's pattern of cruelty, abuse, and death.
I'm not familiar with the situation that you've encountered, but I am happy to review that.
Attorney General Loretta Lynch vows to investigate and report back.
We would very much require that.
It's been more than 7 years.
To your knowledge, did that ever happen?
I'm not aware of any report or any investigation that was conducted.
DOJ can provide no evidence that it ever did that investigation. Congress certainly passed no laws to increase oversight.
Nobody's looking.
Julie Abate, the former DOJ attorney, says if something is not done, the systemic pattern of prisoner transport rapes our investigation exposed will continue.
This is exactly what we need Congress to step up and do to fix this problem, to protect the people who are in our custody that are being abused by people who hold ultimate power over them. It's time to act.
Act before there's another Dabrielle.
Because I don't want that to happen to nobody else.
Or Jennifer.
It literally destroyed me.
Or Danielle.
Because if it was your mother or your child or your sister, you would care. And we are somebody's mother, we are someone's child, we are someone's sister.
In response to this reporting, Minnesota lawmakers are looking at reforms. U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar called what we discovered deeply concerning and called on DOJ to take action. On behalf of KARE 11 Investigates, thanks for watching Nowhere to Turn.